Hello people, we are working inside of Mac Plus today just to get some of the basics right. After having installed Mac Plus Design plugin inside of InDesign, you should be able to see some new features inside of your menu bar. And this is what we'll be working with today, making a layout that includes some of the Mac Plus functionality where you afterwards can export it to different devices. For example, an iPad, which is what I'll be using today to show it on. Okay, we'll create a new document, and in order to do so, we've downloaded Mac Plus from the macplus.com homepage. And to locate your Mac Plus application and the folders for Mac Plus where you have different templates, you'll just go to applications and you'll find the Mac Plus folder. On a PC, of course, you'll find this in the program files folder, the Mac Plus. And you'll open it up, and inside here we have something called Mac Plus templates. That's what we're going to use today in order to tell it which device we'll be outputting to. Later on, you can output to any device. The iPad is, though, a reasonable choice when it comes to choosing the primary output device, because if you choose to do it to iPad, it will also fit iPhone screens. So the Mac Plus template is going to go in here. Even though I'm using an Apple iPad Pro, I will instead select the Apple iPad just for flexibility, because a lot of screens are not as high resolution as the Apple iPad Pro. So I'll instead choose Apple iPad. It will still show fine on my Apple iPad Pro. So I'm gonna go in here and do not select the one called TOC. That's where it's with a table of content included. Instead, select the one called Mac Plus template. And depending on what version of Mac Plus you've installed, it should say CC 2015, CC 2017 when it's updated, or CS 6. We'll open up this template, and we'll not do it by double clicking if we're using an older version of InDesign but have a newer version of InDesign installed. Like now, where 2017 for Mac Plus has not been released. If I double click, it will open up InDesign 2017 and it will report an error. So we'll right click and choose for it to open with the older version of InDesign 2015. Next week, where Mac Plus becomes updated, we can download Mac Plus again in 2017 version, and then it can be opened with Adobe InDesign CC 2017. So I'm going to open it up in Adobe InDesign CC 2015, and you'll open it up, of course, in your version. What happens when we open up this document, I just zoomed out to see it all, is we get an extremely tall document. This is called a vertical inside of Mac Plus, and it's for scrollable content. You can have a lot of information down here which can be scrollable by sliding your fingers across your tablet. Yeah. Inside of layers, there's something called device bezel, device portrait, and device landscape. If I click visibility on device portrait, we'll be able to see how the fit will be for an iPad in portrait format. Also, we can see it for landscape, and if we want to combine the two, there's something called device bezel. We will never want to include anything outside of the visible areas here. Things that are located outside of the visible areas will never be shown, no matter what direction your iPad is pointing. So the device bezel is quite good, and you can see actually it shows where the boundary is for both the portrait and the landscape format. So if you put anything out in this area, some visuals out here, they will not be shown on your iPad. Okay, So I'm just gonna set on mine to portrait, just so we have an idea of where to place things. That's in general easy. It's easiest to just have one of these switched on, so you have a general idea which format is it generally being created for. Then we can always start refining things so it will fit better in the other format. I'll start out with portrait, but you can select landscape if you want. Okay, so before we start working on this file, it's a good idea to go to the designed vertical panel, and to get this down here, I'll just remove mine like this. To get it down there, you'll go to the Mac Plus designed menu bar, and you'll choose the Mac Plus some panel for Mac Plus, and it will open up all of these panels that we showed before. Inside of older versions of InDesign, with those versions of Mac Plus, you'll have less panels that open up, but still we should have the same features that we're going through today in Mac Plus. So inside of the designed vertical panel, we'll have to create an export folder for when we want to review, is this looking good? We'll have to be able to tell InDesign where the file should be located when we export it. It cannot show any review without having included an export folder. So I'm going to browse my computer, click browse, and go to the desktop, and perhaps make a new folder called, let's say, sample magazine, something like that. Sample Mac. And I'm going to click create and choose. Then it knows where to export these files to. Okay, the MIP version, if you're using older versions of Mac Plus, then it will show not all the way to 6.4 probably. Then you can always in newer versions be able to see stuff that's created in older versions, but in older versions you won't be able to see what's created in newer versions. So if you want this to be able to be seen in the reviewer app for your device, if that reviewer app is a version 5.0, well, then you would want, because it's an old reviewer app, then you would want to date it all the way back to being a 5.0, or for some of you 4.0, depending on which version you're using. This is relevant for people actually downloading it from App Store and so on. If their reviewer for seeing this file is outdated, they will not be able to see your 6.4 file. In general, if it doesn't work, try using an older MIP file. Try using an older version. For now, I'll just use 6.4. Okay. So, and I've chosen that it's supposed to be, the layout is for Apple iPad. And if I were to click fast review, it would say that it's not working because I have not chosen my export device. And that's in design settings. You need to connect your device using the same Wi-Fi network or using a cable to connect the device. And sometimes even with cable, the device will not be detected. So you need to, just a sec, so you need to be sure that both devices are on the same network. In my case, my network is UCN Student, so my mobile device, my iPad, needs to be on the same network, the one called UCN Student. Otherwise, it will not be able to be fast reviewed on my iPad or my iPhone or whatever Samsung device I'm using, or HTC. Did you have a question?
It was just on the device. You have yours on Apple, iPad, mine just said Android tablet.
Okay, then it's because when you told yours to make a template, because we went inside of Mac Plus templates, then I told you to go inside of Apple iPad and then double click the Mac Plus template for Apple iPad. If you instead use it one of these other folders because you thought you would rather make it for your own device, well then of course that's why it says that it's something else. You see, if I take like Android tablet, double click this template, it will say now inside of my, I double clicked it. Never double click. Right click, choose open with 2015. Yes, super. Then you see now that it's reporting that it's instead for an Android tablet. So I think it's because of the template file you used to open.
I couldn't find a template, so I tried to search, and they just have the same name again.
Okay. Well, otherwise, just create a new. You know, it's okay that it says Samsung or it says some other device. It just means that the proportion ratio is not the same. So it's still working. It's just making it for another device. So you can still continue like we do. And then you can always watch this video afterwards to find out where the templates are located, because I just told where it's located, and of course not everyone can follow what I'm saying, but that's why we're recording this video, so everyone is. So just use your the document that you have created. And I'll try to go through this quite quickly in order to say it all in like 1 hour, and then we have the video to check afterwards, so we can guarantee that we know this. Okay, so I need to put up some, like I said, device that it's gonna push this to, and so I can actually go to my own device. I have it mirrored over here, and I can go inside of my Mac Plus designed reviewer app and see inside of settings. I'm using Reflector 2 in order to mirror my iPad onto screen. Here you can see inside the push service which numbers are mine, which numbers are my unique push number. So, and I think I already wrote these down. Yes, I did. So I'm just gonna go back here and refresh this list. Push reviews to device. Always remember to refresh it, because if you suddenly connect something, it will not show in there until you have refreshed. See, if I were not able to see Andreas's iPad, it is actually located here. In some cases, you will not see your device, even though you know that it is connected. But if you didn't see this Andreas iPad, right now you could actually fast review like this. Just click fast review. But if you didn't see your own device showing up, you instead click this plus area, plus right here, and then you write down in the host whatever push number you saw on your iPad, iPhone, Samsung device, HTC, or whatever. You write that number in here, 10, 31, 145, 216. Okay, and that's the same number as if I had just chosen Andreas' iPad. That's because it's recognizing that my iPad is connected through the USB cable, possibly, or through the same Wi-Fi network. But it doesn't always recognize. Okay, so when I click to fast review, perhaps I should just, draw a shape, just in order to see if I can actually review it. Fast review. Then it says document must be saved before review is possible. And you say, then probably some of you would say, that it's weird. Actually, I'm just going to go in this document and do it because I was doing it in the Android document. Just going to make sure that it's connected to my Apple iPad. Okay, So it says the document must be saved. You notice that? And to do so, it's not the same as the export folder, because the export folder is for the MIP file, the one that will be created as an app file, you know. Whereas I also need to save the InDesign file somewhere. So I'm going to save it inside the sample Mac, which is also my export folder for the MIP files. I'm going to save it. And now I can fast review. And if everything goes well, we'll see that actually my reviewer has updated this new document review. And here we see a square inside the document. Some of you will be like, why is the background dark? Well, that depends on actually what you've set your background color to. So you can actually, if you didn't want it to be something specific, if you want it to be white, you just click down here, background white, and then your background would be white. That's only relevant if you don't fill up the visual area with pictures and text and so on. Okay, so we'll just make a quick design inside of this layout. I'm just gonna close the other file. And to make that, we are gonna focus on which layers we put stuff on. So the first thing I'll put inside the file is just a background picture. And I'll put that on the bottom layer, the one called B slides main content. That's for static objects that are not moving. So I'll just say file place and find some picture. And I've made some pictures ready already. Inside of your zip file you downloaded for today, DP block 2, there was located these files inside of stock, a lot of JPEGs and EPs, and we're just gonna find a file that we could use here as background. And let's just use the same ones I used to show you earlier. So I'm going to take this EPS file, that's a vector file, and it will be very small when you put it in. And I'm just going to stretch it bigger, holding down Command, and then stretching in one of stretching in the lower right corner, and then holding down Shift to constrain proportions and getting it to look bigger. And right now it will look very bad, and it will seem as if you've damaged the picture by stretching it this big. But try just switching on View, Display Performance, High Quality Display, and see that it actually looks perfect. So that's the view settings, the View, Display Performance. And I'll just somehow perhaps put it like this. You could also do this by copy pasting some print layout you had already made. And I'll try to, put it inside of the document boundaries. So where you actually see that the iPad ends, you will yeah, so mine goes outside of screen. Fantastic. Okay, so now it seems like it's fitting. So this could be how your background picture should look. Your background picture must be located on the B slides main content. If you have some text that also needs to not move but always stay in the same place, then you'll create that text on the same layer. So let's just perhaps create some text. This is me teaching in front of this EDP 15, and perhaps set it to Century Gothic, regular, in a bigger size, like this. Okay. So if you put something up here, or if you put something out here, you see that there are some guidelines. What will happen is actually some of it will be perhaps cut off when it's in a specific direction. So if you had put text up here, that's going to be lost if you suddenly see it in landscape format, unless you use something called pinning inside of Mac+. Because if you use pinning, you can actually always make sure that even if stuff is out here, it will also be able to be seen, because then the device will push them down when it changes orientation, so it's still visible. Let's just not talk about that right now. And perhaps I'll just make it bold. And, you know, change the picture in the background in order for it to perhaps have the right contrast. And I could make a text box more, just say with a subheader. You could make paragraph styles as always and character styles as always inside of InDesign in order to, you know, use the same styles on each and every page of the document. So I'm gonna write today is about the basics of Mac+. I'm just, you know, writing something totally random. And that's gonna be in Gil Sans, regular. You decide yourself which font you'll be using. Perhaps a bit too big, too small, 25, that's, and I don't want any break. So I'm not gonna hyphenate. You notice I have also set my character panel, my paragraph panel, my text wrap, and my effects panel out here. They might come in handy when writing text and putting pictures with text, and also if you want some transparency. But of course you can find most of these features up in the control bar, control menu, or the content bar. Yes, okay. Okay, so let's make some scrollable content also before reviewing. So on the layer called main tower for inline body content, that's really the long name for this layer. The one called A main, you can make your scrollable content, meaning that you can actually, let's say, put some text down here. I'm just going to make this ipsum lorem text. So I'm going to make a text box outside of the field we actually see. I'm going to right click it, fill it with placeholder text, and perhaps actually just making some specific settings for this text box. Yeah, like this. Perhaps choosing some bigger size so it's more readable. And perhaps, you know, dividing it into chapters. And I actually think I'll make it just a bit longer. And I also want to include a picture inside of the text, so I'll just find a picture, and you know, it could be anything. So perhaps just to be totally random, or not so random, I'll include the same picture I showed you earlier today of this fantastic octopussy. And I'm just gonna resize it, put it in the text here. So this is where text wrap comes in handy. Just gonna set it to wrap the text. And of course this text box right here, I'm gonna give it a white background. So I'll click the text box as well, fill it with paper color. Perhaps we would also like people to see that there is actually scrollable content, so they know that that they can drag their finger on the screen and then some scrollable content will show up. To do that, you just expand the text box a bit more. Perhaps change the text frame options to have a bigger top, and perhaps it's using text wrap. You find all panels located in InDesign or any other Adobe graphics design program by going to Window. All panels are located here. And text wrap, it's alphabetically organized, so it's easy to find. Yeah, in Danish it's called figursats. Yeah. By now, everyone should have installed their programs in English. Okay. That's just by clicking the text box and choosing in swatches for it to be a specific color. It could be anything, But I would like it to not be totally white when it comes on screen, because that often looks like a too hard transition when scrolling. So perhaps I would want it to become have a bit opacity, like perhaps 90%, and I'll go to the effects panel to do that, or else I'll just go to the opacity area up inside of the control menu up here, where it says 100%. I'm gonna change it to 90%, so it's just a bit transparent, and perhaps at the top, of this white box, I'll just include an arrow. This is not an arrow, right? I just made a rectangle at the top of this object, and I can actually take this object and just go to object, convert to shape, and choose for it to be a triangle. So then people will know, okay, if I click and drag right here, then something will probably happen. And perhaps I want this to be transparent as well. So I'm gonna go to the effects and just choose some transparency setting for it. Okay, for any of this to work, I will need to group it. It will not know that you can scroll it unless I grouped everything that can be scrolled. And you can only set it to scroll vertically. But still, when you change the orientation, vertical will be another direction. So it's actually vertical in landscape format, and vertical in um, portrait format as well. And I'm showing the exact opposite when I'm saying, yeah. Okay, cool. So what I'm saying is that you need to select the arrow you made at the top if you made one, shift click the text box, so that's selected as well, and shift click the picture to group them. So Command G or Control G, or you just go to, object group. Boom, then it's grouped. If everything is okay, it should also still be located in a main tower for inline body content. If it's not, then be sure to put it on that layer. Otherwise, it will not be scrollable. Then it will just be static and it will be placed on top of the picture elements. Or it will be outside so you won't be able to see any of it. Okay, so let's review this. I'm going to guarantee you that these boxes will not show correct when we review it. So let's go to fast review. Design vertical, fast review. And now it should mirror onto my iPad screen, and you see what the is that, this white box problem. And you will get the same result. The only way you can get around that is because it will take everything like JPEG pictures that is on the layer which is called B slides main content, unless you group it with all the pictures that are behind it. If it knows it's against this yellow background, well, then it will take this text and assume that it's part of that JPEG picture, as if it was 3 layers being merged. So what you're going to do here is, when you have all the background content ready, you're going to group all of those items so it will be taken as one picture, and then we will not have this white box problem. So I'm going to take the text box, shift click on the next text box, and then shift click on the picture. That way we have all 3 things from the static elements selected, and I'm going to group these as well. Whoops, group. And now it should be working. Let's go to, again, design vertical and fast review. I'm going to switch over to this one, and it should be updating. And now you see there's no white box problem. When I'm seeing it in landscape format, you see that I'm not able to see this scrollable area. If I see it in portrait format, you can see that there's actually this scrollable area, and it's actually working. So if I turn it again, you won't be able to see it. So that can actually be a problem, because you can still drag it up. If you don't want to see it, you can, by the way, double click it, and that way it's gone. Okay, if I go into InDesign again, what I'll need to do is I would need this object to go all the way up to this boundary right here. And perhaps that will make some things not look cool. You see, if I do like this, if I drag it up like that, and I'm just gonna put some more text boundary. I'm not gonna care about how the looks is now. I'm just showing how it can be done. Gonna fast review it again, and now you'll see when I see it in landscape format, it's cool. You can see that there's actually something you can drag in. But when I see it in portrait format, perhaps you feel there's too much. So you should take this into account when working with 2 different formats. Perhaps you could make this scrollable arrow somewhat different. Perhaps just like a small icon, so it's not disturbing. And then it could be good for both formats. It will be troublesome in Mac Plus to actually have it go all the way down here again, because then we're working with a combination of it being a pinned object but also a scrollable content, and that's not something you want to mess around with in Mac Plus. Instead, you should design, an arrow that looks different. Perhaps you could just do like, let's see, you could do like this. Instead of having this first feature visible, this first part of the box visible, whoops, this part visible, you could do like this. Then instead of having made an arrow like this, perhaps you could just change it to be something small and insignificant, and then you could try again. Always remember to save before fast reviewing. And now you'll see this is not getting in the way. This is not being anything annoying at all. So just think logically, how would this look good on my design for both formats? See, now it's not disturbing, and it's giving a proper. It's working well with the layout, at least I think. And yeah, okay. So let's say you have a logo somewhere. You want to place a logo somewhere, or perhaps even a text box. So I'm going to place some more text. This is me placing more text. And I'm just going to make it bigger. But for some particular reason, I would not want this to be part of the other group. Well, of course, then what will happen, and I need to make sure it's on B slides, yes. Then what would happen when I fast review it is I get this white box again. So if you have some content that you don't want to be part of the group with the rest for some particular reason, you would instead put any object that's not supposed to be grouped with whatever's on the main content, which has transparency, put that instead on the layer called B slides pin blocks. So it's just this one called B slides main content that makes this white box problem. So if you know that, then it's not really a problem. It's because it converts these things to low quality pictures, so they are faster viewable. Because, most likely some of your heaviest content will be located on that layer, background images, and so on. If it's located on B slides pinned blocks, let's say save and just try to click fast review again, and you'll see now the box will not be a problem anymore. The cool thing about pinned blocks is actually also that if you just put it on the layer pinned blocks, yes, it will remove that white box problem, but actually one of the cool features about this pinned blocks is actually you can put something inside of, let's say this is a logo. I found a symbol inside of Illustrator. This is of a shopping cart. If I put this right here and I put it on pin, it will show white corners if I don't put it on the right layer. So I'm going to put it on pinned blocks. You see now, if I want this to show at the right corner of the document, what will happen if I click save, then fast review, is, it will look great in one format, or perhaps not even great, and it will look bad in another format. So this is quite annoying, that it has to be either very far from the right edge, or it has to be either far from the top edge. So that's where pinned objects come in. In order to make this object stay at both the upper but also the right edge, you would go into the panel called Design Objects. And here you have something called horizontal pin and vertical pin. If you wanted to, stay close to the top edge, then you choose vertical pin top, and if you want it to stay close to the right edge, you choose top and right. So let's try this again. And you know, actually this pinning may take some tries because it's not always logical, because you see now it's located on the right at all times, but it's actually not. Oh, you don't see that. Sorry. You see, now it's located on the right at all times, but it's actually not located at the top. And that's because right now it's registering this as in portrait format. So you actually need to, you're telling it needs to be the top and this amount of centimeters down from the top. So in order to get it to be at the actual top, you'll move it here and just try testing it now. So now it looks like this in landscape, and now it looks like this in portrait. Perfect. It doesn't always make sense, so you need to test right here. But it often means you have to move it either to the top area or actually out on the right area if it's supposed to be at the top right. And then sometimes you just need to have one of these switched on. Other times you just need to have two of them switched on. And it's not always logical which ones you need to switch on. So try the different settings and then click Fast Review. That will make it easier than me trying to use 15 minutes to explain why it's doing this. But it's a matter of, often the pinning objects is a matter of putting it out actually across one of these boundaries. Like here, where I put it up here, and then it will automatically work for this part as well, both in landscape and in portrait. Okay, so I'm gonna save my file. We're gonna put a link in here as well. We might as well. I could put this to always be at the bottom as well. This is me placing more text. It's actually gonna be a link. So instead of putting this on the pinned objects layers, just for having removed the white box, I'm actually gonna make this a link. So let's say this is for macplus.com. I'm just gonna write that here, and to make this object an actual link, if I have my text box selected with my selection tool, I can go to the designed object, and down here at the bottom there is 4 different items, and we're gonna be looking at all 4 of these. There's the one called link, the one called movie, and the one called audio, and finally pop-up. So I'm gonna click link here, and what happens is it creates a hotspot. And right now my hotspot is too big. You can see here, hotspot is means where you click in order for it to go to that link. Yeah. So, and right now my hotspot is taking out all the room the text box was actually taking out. And my text box was too long, but my hotspot doesn't know that. So I actually need to change my hotspot. You see that it makes like a blue hue across the picture. Just 1 second, Jasmine. And I'll just drag it back, that hotspot, so the blue hue is only where the text is. Otherwise, people risk clicking somewhere on the design, and then they'll jump to a web page. Yeah, what was your question?
My whole window is empty. There's nothing. What should I do then?
Then it's probably because your object is not selected. Is that possible?
That's what happened to us. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And what layer should that be on?
This layer can be on a pinned object, pinned blocks as well. You should only put things on the A layers. There's 2 layers called A, one called A main tower and then one called AP. You should only ever put anything on those if it's if it's scrollable content or if it's some pop-up content, where you click something and then it becomes bigger. Otherwise, we will be making everything normally on the B slides. The separation here is the B slides are actually the pages, what a page will contain within the boundaries of the iPad area, whereas what's on the A layers is things that are actually made perhaps even outside of the document, like this part. So that's what the A layers are for. That's for the outside content, and the inside content is for the B layers. That's an easy way of putting it. Okay, so I've made the hue go to this place, and I put it on B slides pinned blocks. Even though it's on pinned blocks, it can still have interactive content. So, okay, again, inside of this designed object, I need to put the designed object panel. I need to also put, of course, the URL. It will not recognize the text as being an URL. You need to write the URL in here as well, because it could also just say visit our homepage, and then you type in the URL right here, and it should actually say this http //vmacplus.com. And if you want to highlight it, if when people click it and something happens, if you want the text to be highlighted when they click it, you can choose some color there. The colors you can choose here is the ones located in your swatches. Yeah. And right now we're just creating a link. There's also possibilities of jumping to other pages, jumping to specific media, pop-ups, and so on. So let's see if this works. I'll save again, and I'll click fast review. And I see that my text box needs to be bigger because it cut some of my Mac Plus off. So if I click this Mac Plus, you notice that if your connection was slow, you would see that it will highlight in orange if you had chosen orange. You see now you go to the web page. Inside of your document, you're guided to the web page, and you can just click done and then go back. I'll just make, instead of doing it again, I'll just make another link for another site. So I'm just going to include one more text box, or actually, perhaps not a text box, perhaps just a square. So it could be like a logo as well. It could be a picture as well. So I'm just going to make a square and going to put some color in it, some specific color, like red, the color of blood, suffering. Yeah, I'm going to put it down here. I'm actually going to make it as a pinned block as well. So I'm going to say designed objects, design object. Oh, it's because I put it on. Oh, what the? I put it on the clickable areas layer. What the? Okay, that was not intentional. Okay, I'll of course put it on the B slides pin blocks. That makes sense. Then we can suddenly see some other things in here. What was your question? Yeah.
Change it. Yours was hotspot. How did you choose?
If it says hotspot, hotspot here instead, when I just place a new object, then it's because it's located in the wrong layer. Depending on which layer you're located on, the different panel will say different things. So mine was located, I accidentally placed mine in the clickable areas layer. And that means that, okay, then suddenly I have different features inside of my object panel. Does that make sense? Depending on which layer I'm on, I'll have different features inside of my panel.
Okay,
So the right layer, if you had like, let's say a home logo that will click you to go to a home page or click you to go to the first page, the right layer would be the one called B slides pin blocks.
okay, so but then when you click the designed object, what is it supposed to say?
Then when what?
Never mind. Continue.
Okay. Okay, I know what you're saying. Inside of the designed object, it will now have different features than before. It will have block, control, image, HTML, PDF, add, panorama, spacer, and so on.
Since the last time it's a hotspot and now it says block, and I think I was on the same layer.
Yeah.
That confused me.
Yeah. Yeah. That is actually confusing.
What did you take now for object type?
So when I've why does it not show like a link? Okay, for some reason it won't show the links panel. So let's just make it as a text box to start out with and just give that text box color instead. Okay. That's really weird. You cannot. Okay, that's a strange feature. You can make it as a text box from the start, and then the designed object will show that you can link it. But you could not make it with a rectangle first and then convert the rectangle to a text box. Hello, logic. So just delete, if you made a square, delete that and make a text box and then color the text box in a specific color. Weirdness. Okay, so
How do you color the text?
you just, unselect it because otherwise you would be writing in it. Click outside it, then click on it again, and then choose a color from the swatches, for example. Swatches panel. Yes. Okay, so then we again click this area called link. And it will say, okay, is this the area I'm supposed to click in? And you'll say, yes, indeed it is. Or you'll change the area. And Earl will just set that to be, http colon / adobe www.adobe.com, for
You have
example.
to write the HTTP.
Yeah. I recommend that you do this because otherwise it will a lot of the time, not work. Yeah, it didn't work. Yeah. Notice that though some websites actually is HTTPS instead of HTTP, but you'll see that when you go to the homepage, Okay, so perhaps on tab, I would want it to become highlighted with green. So now when I click on it, it's highlighted with green. Other than that, I would actually also like this to be a pinned object that moves according to the format. Otherwise, I would not be able to see this in landscape format. So I'll go to my layers, just find this object. Um, and you know, I'll make it a pinned object that has a horizontal pin and vertical pin, and I'll just click save, and let's see if the clickable area follows. Okay, so in landscape it looks like this, and in portrait it looks like this, and I can click it, and I'll go to adobe.com, which has Black Friday sales. I'll see if it works in landscape format as well. Yes, so you know, even though the clickable area hotspot was located on another layer, and I didn't set pin for that layer, for that clickable hotspot, you know, the hue which was on top of the button, the one you defined where you have to click for in order for it to work, it will follow whatever I pin the square beneath to be pinned to, for example, bottom left. So what I'm saying is that, you know, this object down here is located on two layers. You see, on top of it, there's a hue that is located in clickable areas layer. Below it is the actual block, which is located in B slides pinned blocks. And I put this this square right here, I put that to be pinned to horizontal pin left, vertical pin button. But you know, you cannot put those settings on a clickable area. But this clickable area will automatically follow its, you know, its friend. So even though they are on two different layers, this clickable area will rotate as the canvas rotates. So what I'm saying is it will work. Okay, so I actually think that's enough for page 1. Let's go to making a new page. So to create a new page, what you'll do is you'll click on this create new page icon in InDesign, create a new page, and it will create a second vertical. On this second vertical, we'll just create some quick layout, and remember, when you create this quick layout, do it on the B slides main content. So I'm gonna find a picture, put that in here. Yeah, it could be this picture. I'm just gonna remove this bevel and put portrait instead, and just go crazy. Yeah, this might work. Rup, like that. Okay, and you know, you could add text like you could on the other document. You could add scrollable content like you did on the other page. But instead here we'll focus on putting some interactivity into it. So we'll focus on pop-ups, media, and those two types of media will be audio and video. And of course also how to place an actual website inside of the document. So I'll just click and drag a box and perhaps make it black, and then locate it. Actually, it's you can actually locate this. If this is always going to be static where it's located, the video, you could put it on the main content. So it could be on the main content. It doesn't have to be on pinned blocks if you know that it's going to be always located here in the layout. So inside of the, after drawing this square on the layer main content, I'm going to tell this to become a not a movie. I told you for it to become a home page first. So for it to become a home page that is actually viewable directly inside of your MIB file, inside of your document, you choose for it not to be a block, but for it to be HTML. Have you clicked your object? And it's a new object, it's a square or something like that. And it's located on a layer called B slides main content. Okay, we can take that after class then. Then just ignore this one because as long as the videos and audio works, because I have this on video then, and then you can always check the video and I can try answering you afterwards. Okay, so object type HTML. Inside the URL you write the entire URL, and let's say you want this to be to the same website as before, but you just want it to be viewed inside of the MIB file. So this looks fine. I'll go back, I'll save, and I'll click fast review. Okay, so we have scrollable content, perfect. We have a link that's working perfect. We have a shopping cart, which I could put a link to as well, so it goes to a shopping page. We have this square down at the bottom. You notice that it highlighted in orange when I clicked it, and it opens up an entirely new web page. I go back. If I scroll down enough, I'll go to the next page. If you wanted it to scroll not vertical, you could do that inside of the publishing tools if you wanted to scroll horizontal instead when it comes to switching pages. Okay, so here you actually see that it's showing the actual website on this next page. It's showing Mac Plus website in here, and if I want to use this website, I can actually go in and scroll around on this website and navigate myself to, let's say I'm going to navigate to the blog to see what's going on in here and so on. In my InDesign, it just shows a black box. And that's actually what is gonna happen if if the web page is not the same ratio. Then whatever is not the same ratio will have a black boundary because I made the box inside of InDesign black. It could also be transparent. That way, it would just show true unless you put it on the main content layer. Then it would actually just show a white box instead, where there's transparency. Okay, so that was putting a web page inside of your document. I'm just going to make this a bit smaller so we have some more area to work on. So it's going to be a really small home page that is located inside of here. The next thing I'll do is I'll make a pop-up. So I'll make a small picture to become big. So I'll just place and I'll put just yes. I'll take this one. Just put a small picture down here. The only reason I would not use it is if, for example, this poster had some, these edges. You see, if they were transparent. In this case, there is no transparency, so I might as well put it on the main content layer. And then I'll make a button so people know that if I click this area, it's going to become big. So I'm going to simply file place, and choose this plus symbol. I'm just gonna make it really big now, just so everyone can see it. Okay, and this is gonna be placed on pop-up main content. Okay, so you don't have the big picture placed yet. What happens when you go to designed object and click pop-up is that it should create a new square where you're supposed to place that picture inside of, which will be the pop-up. So I'm just gonna put a file in here. We're gonna say file place and take that picture. Just make sure that this picture is located inside of that square. That means the square has to be selected. And when it's in there, I just need to drag it bigger. Perhaps like that. And then I can reshape the square to fit by just double clicking one of the handles. Then it will resize to fit. And now it's working. I promise you. I promise. So I'll click save and I'll click fast review. Put the plus symbol on the main content layer instead, and try doing it again. And perhaps it will not show transparency. Yeah, okay, so now it's working, but it shows a white box in this case. Oh, perhaps the reason why it's not showing a white box in your case is probably because you made a group. I'll put a box here, a black box, and another black box just to end it off quickly. This one box will have a video, designed object, movie, and I'll browse my computer for a movie. So I'll just click File inside of the object. I have an MP4 file already located on my computer. MP4, you can just search your computer for MP4 files. So now it will be a movie. When I click on it, a movie will start. When I click again, it will pause. Other than that, you need to make controls manually, which will be covered next time. This one needs to be audio, so I'll click the file and I'll choose for an audio file. So let's say that's this MP3. Okay, that's actually all to it. So I'll click save and I'll click fast review and I'll go to see my fast review. Oh, it's taking a lot more time now because I'm exporting videos and sound. You know my YouTube channel, everyone, right? Cool. Finally, it's showing. And when I click this area, it puts the video inside of the field. Yeah. And also it plays sound. Yeah. How about should do it? Okay, put it in main content and make it a group instead of putting it in pin blocks. Seems like it's causing problems putting it in pin blocks. Thank you for today. I don't want to talk anymore.